Welcome to MCN. Now, if you were to look up the word Supersport in the dictionary, you would probably see a picture of the Honda CBR600RR staring back at you. So this is the archetypical Supersport bike. Very small, very agile, very revvy, very exciting, very single-minded. And that's very much the reason that sales of this bike dwindled over recent years, along with the likes of the Yamaha R6, the ZX6, the GSX-R600 and the like. Although having said that, Honda have brought it back for 2024 and 2025, pumped it full of electronics, but it is still very, very niche. Now the Supersport world has moved on now, as you might have seen in racing and on the showroom floor, and two very exciting new generation Supersport bikes have entered our world. We've got the Ducati Panigale V2S and the Yamaha R9. Now I've ridden all of these bikes at their launches on track, but I'm really interested to know what they're like on the road and what they're like overall, road and track. And it's very interesting because we've got a 4, we've got a twin, and we've got a triple. We have got 117 bhp, 118, 119, so they're all really, really close. In terms of price, that's just over 12 grand. This is around about 11, and this is knocking on the door of 17, depending on when you're watching this video. So to find out if these are worthy of the term Supersport and which one is best, we're going to pitch them head to head. We're going to hopefully get some dry time around Brands Hatch, but before then, we're going to take them for a road ride. So this video is sponsored by the nice people at Senna Communications, and we're going to be using their intercoms today while we're having a little chitty chat to each other. And we're going to be using Senna's ST1 Spider and 60S in our own crash helmets, using their mesh system where lots of people can talk to each other at the same time. But you can also buy a standalone Senna crash helmet, which has got it all built in, and it matches this R9 nicely.
Hello. Mesh intercom on.
And joining us on our ride today is guest tester Paul Berryman and MCN deputy editor Carl Stevens, both no stranger to the racetrack or Supersport 600s. This 600, I mean, it's a rev monster, isn't it? The bikes that you're on are got much more flexible engines, almost the same power. It's twin cylinder, 3-cylinder. That's definitely the way things are going, because history's proved that, unfortunately, bikes like the CBR600RR are a little bit kind of long in the tooth now, which is such a shame, because I think they've been tarred with the brush of just being too uncompromising. You know, you do have to rev this thing hard. It's got a 15,000 RPM red line, which just sounds amazing, as we'll find out on track tomorrow, hopefully. And you know, the way this bike's evolved as well, it's got a quick, really, really nice quick shifter and flipper, all the electronics, TFT dash. You know, it feels like a new bike, even though you can kind of trace this back really to 2003 when the CBR600RR first came out, and it was based on the RCV MotoGP bike at the time, with all the buzzwords like mass centralisation. And yeah, I mean, when I had one of these back when I was 33 years old, it was just the best thing ever. But now I'm 55, maybe it is a little bit too uncompromising.
I'm really interested to get off this and get on the CBR600 actually, because obviously growing up riding 600s, like the R6, ZX6, the CBR600, of course we had the Daytona 675 that's a triple, but like the main contenders were they all had like a similar vein running through them, whereas now we've got a 4, a 3 and a 2 in completely different packages. It's quite nice actually to have that variation on offer, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah. Well, I reckon we should swap in a minute, because I'm really interested to see how the Yamaha and Ducati rides on the road, because I did the launches on track. And yeah, let's pull over here, shall we?
Alright, we're rolling. I tell you what, I see what you mean, these. It's far more comfortable and spacious than I was expecting.
Yeah.
And it still feels so familiar. I think the first time I rode a CBR600 was about 15 years ago.
You weren't born when it fully came out, were you?
I was, thankfully. But the first time I rode one was at the Ronazan Race School, and I remember getting on it for the first time, and it just blew me away. First time I ever rode a 600, and that memory has stayed with me for life. And I get on it now, and it still has that same sense of purpose to it, doesn't it? Like, it's so sharp. Everything about it just feels pristine and just ready to go wherever you want it to.
I mean, the chassis on that Honda is fantastic. It's no surprise it's dominated racing, really. Virtually unchanged, just with some suspension thrown at it. How's the R9, Paul? Being a big Yamaha fan like you are?
The brakes don't feel quite as sharp as the Ducati, and I think that's something that you'd felt previously.
Yeah, I mean, one of the weak points of the R9 at the launch was its brakes. And I think that's unfortunately a Yamaha story over the years, you know. Ever since they went cornering ABS, their braking system's been quite wooden, not very sharp, not that confidence inspiring.
I'm feeling that at the bars here. It doesn't have that initial kind of bite or feel.
I mean, one thing you can't level at the Ducati is bad brakes. The brakes on this bike are absolutely amazing, as all Ducatis are. They manage to do ABS so well. You know, they don't take away any of the feel. Just the brakes just feel like racing brakes on this thing. And I've got to say, I think the Honda is nicer to ride at a lower speed like this. The engine is just so buttery smooth. And the Ducati is a little bit agricultural because it's a twin. I mean, I've used this engine a lot this year on the road. I've had a Multistrada long-termer, Street Fighter long-termer. And I'd say the engine is quite utilitarian feeling. You know, it doesn't absolutely brim with excitement. But I've got to say, for a tall rider like me with dodgy knees, I absolutely love the riding position. I love how widely splayed the bars are.
Yeah.
How low the pegs. It feels like my racing bike that I've kind of set up to be comfortable for me. Loads of room in the seat. The screen's a good height. You know, ergonomically for me, it's fantastic. And, you know, you just get the sense that the level of this bike far exceeds what you could ever hope to push on the road. But it's a Supersport bike, and it is exciting. You know, it's not a plodder. It's definitely more exciting than the old Supersport, which probably, you know, power-wise, it's the closest to. You know, whether it's a full-blooded Panigale, I mean, we're going to find out on track tomorrow, but I love riding it. And it's got cruise control, but you've got to pay extra.
Got you. You see, the MT-09 engine in this sort of says it's the same thing. They've got a basic engine and they're just throwing it into different chassis to cover different markets. So, you know, the MT-09 engine in this R9 hasn't really been breathed on. So with you know, perhaps that's what the modern Supersport is. It's not chasing the horizon. It's kind of just, this is a bike we can make that's cost effective. You know, there's styling exercises around a generic engine.
I've got to say though, it's a bit disappointing Yamaha didn't do anything with the engine, because they could have given it a few more thousand RPM, couldn't they?
Yeah, the one thing I ran into this morning very regularly was the rev limiter. You just, you know, it lifts its skirt, it starts to go, and you think, here we go, and then, and you're left feeling a bit underwhelmed by how far it revs. So the red line on this Yamaha is just 10,500 RPM.
Yeah, I mean, you know, in that respect, it's not as exciting as the Honda, is it? The Honda absolutely gets your blood boiling. It's superb.
100%. I think that is it's almost retro chic, isn't it? It's got that kind of this is what we used to do back in the day. And what it tells us is what we used to do back in the day potentially is a little bit more spine tingly than what we're doing today.
I think if the Honda had the riding position of the Ducati, it'd be perfect. But it's typical of Japanese bikes of that era. They were built for racers, weren't they? They were built for Carl.
They're built for 5'7" Carl, yeah. So I'm 5'10" and you're 6 foot, Leavesy, so we're covering all the sizes here.
Yeah, see, that's really interesting you say that, because I get on the Ducati and it feels a bit too almost comfortable for me, because the clip-ons sit a bit higher. I don't feel like I'm like properly plugged into it.
Yeah.
Like, this feels like a purposeful riding position. Do you know, like, even when you're not riding at 10 temps, when you just want to enjoy it on the roads, I love that feeling of just being in sync with a bike, and I feel like that's what a super sport bike should be. And I feel like that's why I instantly feel comfortable on the CBR and the R9, because they are that bit more purposeful. They're a bit more engaging, because you are just a bit more connected to that front end. And although the Panny's more comfortable, it has that sort of almost sports tourer-esque sort of feeling for me, which makes it a slightly difficult to, you know, like really get my blood pumping with it. But I think that is partly down to my size as well, because like, I'm sitting on this, and even though there's high pegs and low bars, like, I've got plenty of room here. Like, I could quite happily sit, like, well, I could sit here for hours, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, you're riding with two blokes who've got bad knees, so it's unsurprising we like the V2.
I'm jealous you've got your toes on the pegs there. I couldn't get there in a million years.
I tell you what though, when you haven't ridden a Supersport bike in a while, like, they just feel so sharp, don't they, and so precise.
Big time.
Like, they're just so good. It's such a shame that everyone, or like a big majority of people, fell out of love with them, because they're just beautiful to ride.
Yeah. Unfortunately, though, they don't appeal to the masses anymore, and I think that's what the manufacturers are trying to do. They're trying to bring more people in and sort of deliver a bike that's a little bit friendlier riding position, not so highly strung with the engine. But I don't think the Honda's that bad anyway.
No, it's not at all. It's like you said, it's actually surprising how friendly and comfortable it is. It's like, you think of a 600 as just like a fire-breathing weapon that's going to give you a backache after 10 minutes, but it's actually not. And considering this is the cheapest of the bunch, it's still feels like a lovely proper bit of kit, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. This R9 is the bike I've been most curious about for the road. I've ridden it on the track at the launch and I thought it was great. Like we were saying earlier, it kind of bumped into its red line a little bit too early and the brakes were a little bit disappointing. And the big thing is the riding positions. I was wondering what that would be like, and it is still quite extreme. It doesn't feel that different to the CBR, so I don't really think Yamaha have done anything to sort of bring older, creakier riders into the equation. I mean, I like the engine. The engine's fantastic, and all of its creature comforts. It's got cruise control, isn't it? It's got fully adjustable suspension. It's got a top yoke that's got vents in it, or slots in it, like a GP bike. Great dash, but although it isn't quite as cramped as the Honda, I still think it's quite uncompromising. But the engine is fantastic, even though it doesn't scream. That it's got its own character. You know, we all love a howling triple, and obviously the MT-09 engine is inspired by the Triumph 675 back in the day. I remember doing probably before Carl was born, I did the launch of the MT-09 in 2013. But yeah, I think this is definitely a Supersport bike in the same vein as the Honda, rather than the Ducati, I reckon. How are the wings?
Yeah, I can feel there's a couple of corners back there where I felt I'd have been in trouble if I didn't have some wing.
I thought I might need the Stegosaurus wings on the back to balance it out.
Yeah.
Although Carl hasn't got any wings.
No, and I feel slower for it. I tell you what, the like, following you boys, I can see how sort of long your legs are and how cramped you are. I can see why people struggle to ride sports bikes.
Yeah.
But then sitting on here, it sounds so good, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Sitting on the Panigale, it's just, I just wish it was slightly more aggressive. I wish it was like the old one. I know I'm probably an outlier here, but because I've got short arms and short legs, they just suit me nicely.
Yeah, exactly. It is a shame that the new Panigale's kind of been neutered a little bit.
So here's a question for you, Newsy.
Yeah.
If money was no object, which one would you have?
I'd say...
Purely for road stuff.
The Ducati, because it just fits me so well. And it's got cruise control. Well, you've got to pay extra for it. And the Yamaha does. But I think I'd just like to open the garage door to that Ducati. Even though the R9 is a nice looking bike. Better in blue than this black, I think. But yeah, I'd have the Ducati. What about everyone else?
I think I'd probably go for the R9.
Okay.
I love the Ducati. I love the Panigales. Ever since I rode the first 1199, I've always been a fan of them. But there's something about that R9 that just sort of fits me down to a T. Like, it just feels bigger. It feels bit more substantial. It's just got that sort of sharper edge to it.
Yeah.
Plus, I'm just a sucker for wings. You know, I've got to have some wings on my sports bikes.
Well, we can make you some out of like a biscuit tin or something like that.
That's
Get
it.
some strap-on wings.
Yeah.
If I couldn't have a remap and a pipe on the Yamaha and find that extra little bit of punch, I'd probably end up with the Ducati. But if I was allowed to strap a pipe on, maybe a set of cams, give that R9 a couple of thousand RPM I think it needs, that's the bike. That's the bike I really want on this test, is an R9 with more revs.
And I think given the price, you could afford to put some nice bits on it as well, couldn't you?
Actually true, if you're paying money out of your own pocket, you've got a lot of headroom, because that Ducati is very expensive in comparison.
Who are each of these bikes for? The R9 is for a keen track day rider, so I think it's going to be really dependable. If you kind of raced it up a little bit with the brakes and tyres and an ECU, I think it'd be a superb track day bike. And I think the Ducati will be more of a Sunday morning kind of bike, you know, beautiful to look at, you know, real luxurious, lovely parts, exciting. And then maybe the Honda is almost like a retro bike nowadays, in the same way as the Z900RS is. It's just a retro of a different era. I mean, pound for pound, in terms of overall equipment, overall excitement, and you know, all three of these bikes really are Supersport bikes in their own way. But you'd have to say that sort of the Yamaha would probably come out as top dog on the road, really, as your choice of a modern day Supersport bike.
Yeah, I'd agree, definitely.
It would be hard to really argue against it with the other two, because I think the Honda is maybe a little bit too single-minded, you know, even though we've said it's actually quite flexible for what it is, and the Ducati is quite pricey. I kind of think that rules those two out as an overall road winner.
Yeah, I agree. The Yamaha sort of sits a bit in the middle of these two, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, that might be different on track, and let's hope the weather is kind to us tomorrow, because I've got a feeling, having ridden all three on the track, the Honda and the Ducati are really going to impress as well.
Yeah, I can't wait. I'm really not sure which one's going to come out on top, to be honest.
No. Well, it's a tough job. Someone's got to do it.
Nothing like riding Supersport bikes with your mates, is there?
Exactly.
So we've ridden these bikes on the road, and now we're here at one of my favourite circuits, Brands Hatch in Kent, to do a track day. But we're now knocking on 4 o'clock in the afternoon. We've been waiting around all day for the rain to stop, and it hasn't played ball, unfortunately. We managed to get 15-20 minutes earlier on track, which you can see in the footage, but it wasn't really what you'd call quality laps. All of these bikes are on road tyres as they come out of the showroom. Not really conducive to riding in the wet. So really our kind of track judgment is out of the window a little bit. Although I can tell you what they're like on track because I rode each of these bikes at their world launches. So I rode this at Portimao, ironically in the wet, but with wets. I rode these two at the Seville circuit earlier this year, earlier in 2025. The Honda is everything we kind of know and love about a Supersport bike. All the things I described at the beginning. Very agile, very revvy, very involving, very exciting, very, very capable. It's a fantastic track bike, and even kind of pottering around in sort of iffy conditions. It's very friendly, it's very soft, it's very easy. The R9 on track when we rode it in Seville was good fun, but it was limited by the fact it bumped into its rev limiter too soon because it's basically an MC09 engine with nothing added or taken away. And the brakes, typical Yamaha kind of wooden brakes, which is disappointing. And then the Panigale at Seville was probably out of the crate the most track focused because it's got the best brakes. For a bigger rider like me, it's got the most room to move around, and it's got the most over rev as well. So, you know, I think as the bikes stand here, the one I'd like to do a track day on the most would be between the Panigale and the Honda. I think I'd be a little bit frustrated all the times about the shortcomings of the Yamaha. So that's kind of what the bikes are like on the track. In terms of answering the question we asked right at the beginning, can these two bikes call themselves proper Supersport bikes compared to the OG? I think definitely yes. They're definitely the new generation of Supersport. They're not as exciting as a Screaming 4. They kind of create their own fun in their own kind of inimitable way with the engine character of a triple, the grunt of a twin. But both of these bikes kind of are tinged with a little bit of disappointment, if I'm honest. So the Panigale is a fantastic bike, but it's very expensive. You know, it's $5 more than this. It's a lot of money more. And the engine, while powerful and it does everything it should do, it lacks a little bit of excitement. The Yamaha disappoints a little bit because of those brakes, because of the kind of the over rev. And if this bike is meant for more for me than Carl Stevens, you know, the kind of the older rider is a little bit creaky, the riding position, although it is a little bit kinder than the R6, is still more like the Honda. So it's still quite uncompromising. So really, while these two bikes had the chance to kind of be absolute wow machines, they kind of fall a little bit short. Whereas the Honda doesn't do anything wrong. The Honda does exactly what it's supposed to do. It is a proper Supersport screamer, and it's evolved into this beautiful machine now that's got all these electronics, that's got a colour dash. It's very smooth, very exciting, but we know that this is niche, and sales have proved that people don't want these bikes anymore. Although, you know, this is new and they're still selling a few. So this is really, really where the future lies with Supersport bikes. And these are going to be seen more and more in racing now. And although both of these bikes have got their downsides, I would say it's the Yamaha that kind of is the best here and wins our test. And I think if you spent a couple of grand on the Yamaha, looking at the brakes, maybe getting an exhaust and an ECU flash to give it a few more revs, there's not much you can do about the riding position. Maybe there is with sort of aftermarket seat unit or whatever. I think the Yamaha would definitely be a sparkling bike, which I think Yamaha should have made it in the first place. So, you know, I think the bike that wows me the most here is this. The bike that fits me the best is the Ducati. But I think as an all-rounder, that if you spent a little bit of money on, then definitely the R9 would be the winner of this test. It's a real shame we didn't get to ride them in anger today here at Brands Hatch, but you know, that's the way the cookie crumbles here on a September day in England. But you know, I'm sure we'll get a chance to ride these bikes again on the track soon. So congratulations to Yamaha for winning our Supersport test with the new R9, although I think it could have been a little bit better. And thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you again very soon.
Mesh intercom on.
Good show, I think we can go to the pit lane now.